Disclaimer: this story is based on real events shared for storytelling purposes. Some details have been changed to protect the privacy of the individuals involved. Viewer discretion is advised. I never thought I'd find myself in this position, questioning everything I knew about my own family, watching it slowly come apart right in front of my eyes. When I married Tom, I didn't just gain a husband, I also stepped into the life of his teenage son, Ethan. He was only 16 at the time, quiet and polite, with a troubled look in his eyes that always made me feel like he was carrying more than he let on. I tried my best to bond with him, to be more than just his stepmother. I wanted to be someone he could trust. But nothing could have prepared me for what I would discover, and how it would change the way I saw him, forever. At first, everything felt normal, at least, as normal as life could be in a newly blended family. Tom worked long hours, I managed the house and freelanced from home, and Ethan was usually buried in his phone or sneaking off with friends. We had our share of teenage attitude and silent dinners, but it didn't seem like anything out of the ordinary. Until the day I noticed something strange. It was subtle. A certain look Ethan gave our new neighbor. A lingering glance that lasted just a second too long. At first, I thought I was imagining it. Maybe I was reading too much into things. But once you notice something, you can't unsee it. Our neighbor, Claire, had just moved in a few months before. She was in her mid-20s, beautiful in a quiet, bookish way. She kept to herself mostly, but we'd made casual small talk across the fence a few times. Nothing about her ever struck me as inappropriate, until I caught Ethan watching her through his window. It was late. Everyone else had gone to bed, but I was still up doing some work in the kitchen when I noticed the glow from his room. I quietly walked up the stairs, intending to remind him to get some sleep. But when I peeked in through the slightly open door, I saw him at the window, staring, frozen, eyes locked on Claire's window across the yard. I didn't say anything that night. I don't know why. Maybe I was too stunned. Maybe I didn't want to jump to conclusions. But the next morning, things felt different. Ethan avoided eye contact. Claire didn't wave when she passed by on her morning jog. There was a strange tension in the air, and I couldn't shake it. I told myself again that maybe I was overthinking it. But then it happened again. And again. Each time, I tried to find a logical explanation. Maybe he had a crush. Maybe it was just curiosity. Teenagers are complicated, I told myself. But the looks between them weren't one-sided. Claire noticed him. That much I was sure of. There was a moment one afternoon when I stepped out into the backyard and caught them talking at the fence. She smiled a little too warmly. He stood a little too close. And when they saw me, they both stepped back like kids caught doing something they shouldn't. I started keeping a closer eye on things. The more I watched, the more I saw. Text messages that Ethan would hide the second I walked into the room. Late-night walks when he said he was going to the store but came back empty-handed. Claire's lights flickering on just minutes after he'd left. I was putting the pieces together, but I didn't want to believe what they added up to. I tried to talk to Tom about it once. He brushed it off, said I was being paranoid. That Claire was just being friendly, and Ethan was just being a teenager. But something in my gut told me otherwise. Something was happening right under our roof, or at least next to it, and I felt like the only one who could see it. And then came the night everything changed. The night I saw it with my own eyes, undeniable, unexplainable. The night that confirmed what I had feared all along. I stood there, frozen, as Ethan crossed a line that should never be crossed, and Claire let it happen. What happened next still keeps me up at night. Because the truth is, that night wasn't the end of it. It was just the beginning. And what followed was something I never imagined would repeat itself, again and again. I didn't sleep that night. I sat on the edge of the bed, the house silent around me, trying to understand how everything had gotten so twisted. My mind replayed the scene over and over again. The way Ethan slipped through the backyard gate, quiet like he'd done it before. The way Claire opened her door without hesitation. It wasn't just some innocent visit. The way they moved, the familiarity, it all told me that this had been going on for longer than I wanted to admit. In the morning, everything looked the same. Tom was sipping his coffee, reading the news on his phone. Ethan sat across the table, eyes half open, acting like any other bored teenager. But I couldn't look at him the same. My thoughts were spinning, and yet I had no proof I could present without sounding completely out of line. I didn't even know how to bring it up. How do you say to your husband, "I think your son is sneaking around with the woman next door"? How do you even begin to have that conversation? Claire didn't come outside that day. Her windows stayed shut, the curtains drawn. Maybe she was just laying low. Maybe she was scared too. But scared of what? Being caught? Or was there something else going on between them, something deeper, something I wasn't seeing yet? I started going through little things around the house. Not in a dramatic way, but I couldn't help myself. I checked Ethan's backpack when he was in the shower. Looked through the pockets of his hoodie. And then I found something. A receipt, crumpled at the bottom of his bag. A small flower shop, out in the next town over. One single rose. Bought at 11:38 p.m. 3 nights ago. I didn't say anything, but I held on to it. I don't know why it hit me so hard. It was just a flower. But something about it made all of this feel very real. The next few days were filled with strange silence. Ethan stayed in his room more than usual. Claire barely opened her front door. But then, one afternoon, I saw him sneak out again. This time, he didn't go to her house. He got into an Uber. I watched from the upstairs window, heart pounding. I wasn't sure what I was doing, but without even thinking, I grabbed my keys and followed. The Uber took him across town. Not to a store, not to a park, but to an apartment complex. I waited from a distance, parking at the corner. He stood at the door of one of the units, checking his phone. After a few seconds, the door opened. A woman, maybe early 30s, let him in. She smiled. He smiled back. That's when I realized. Claire might not be the only one. I drove home in silence, my chest tight. My thoughts were a mess. Who was this woman? Was she just a friend? Or was Ethan caught in something even more complicated than I thought? There was no way to know for sure, but the pattern was becoming too clear to ignore. It wasn't just one time. It wasn't just one woman. I started thinking back to little things, comments Ethan made, moments I had brushed off. Like the time I heard him on the phone whispering in the hallway. Or how he suddenly became protective over his phone, even putting a lock on it when he never cared before. There were signs, I just hadn't seen them for what they were. Tom was still in the dark. Completely. I wanted to tell him, I really did, but how do you tell a father something like this about his own son? He loved Ethan. He already felt guilty for not being around much during his early years, and now, Ethan was finally opening up, spending more time at home, seeming happier. How could I tear that down with accusations that sounded so unreal? And then came the text. It was late. I was about to go to bed when my phone buzzed. An unknown number. Just one sentence, you need to talk to your stepson before it happens again. No name. No clue who sent it. My heart nearly stopped. I stared at the screen, the air thick with questions. Who sent it? What did they mean by again? And most of all, what was about to happen next? The truth was, I had no answers. But I had a terrible feeling. I was running out of time. I couldn't sleep after that message. I kept staring at my phone, hoping another text would come, something that could explain who sent it or what they meant. But nothing. Just silence. My mind went in circles. Was it Claire? The woman from the apartment? Someone else entirely? And what exactly was going to happen again? That one word, again, kept echoing in my head like a warning. The next morning, I watched Ethan more closely than ever. He acted normal, maybe a little more distant, but nothing out of place. He left for school like usual. Tom was rushing to work. Everything looked fine from the outside, but I could feel something off. There was a heaviness in the house I couldn't explain. And still, I said nothing. I kept it all inside, afraid that saying it out loud would make it more real. Later that day, I decided to visit Claire. Not to confront her, I wasn't ready for that, but to just look her in the eye. Maybe see something that could help me make sense of this mess. But when I rang her doorbell, no one answered. I waited, pretending to check my phone like I wasn't standing there for answers. Then I heard a sound behind the fence. A soft laugh. Claire was in the backyard. With someone. I stepped back quickly, trying not to be seen, and peeked through the gap in the wooden fence. It wasn't Ethan. It was a man. Older, maybe in his late 20s or early 30s. He handed her a drink, and she leaned in close, smiling. They looked comfortable. Familiar. Like they knew each other well. That added a whole new layer of confusion. Was this the real guy in her life? Was Ethan just a secret, something hidden in the background? Or was this man the reason Claire was pulling away? The questions kept piling up, and I had no way to answer any of them. That night, I brought up Ethan again to Tom. I didn't mention Claire or the apartment or even the message. Just that I was worried. I said he seemed withdrawn, maybe involved in things he couldn't handle. Tom brushed it off again, saying all teenagers go through strange phases. He said I was overthinking it, and Ethan probably just had a crush or a friend I didn't know about. I wanted to scream, to shake him and make him see what I saw, but I kept my mouth shut. There was no proof. Just moments, glances, and one chilling message. But it wasn't just Ethan anymore. I started noticing something else. A strange car that parked across the street some nights. A dark sedan, tinted windows. It would arrive after 10, stay for about 20 minutes, then leave. At first, I thought it might be visiting Claire, but one night, I saw Ethan walk out the front door and head straight for the car. I watched from the window, barely breathing. The car door opened, he got in, and it drove off. I didn't sleep that night either. Every direction I turned, it felt like there were more secrets. Claire, the woman from the apartment, the mystery text, the car at night, it was all too much to be nothing. Something was happening. Something big. And Ethan, he was right in the middle of it. The following evening, I sat by the window again, hidden behind the curtain, waiting. I didn't even know what I was hoping to catch anymore. Ethan sneaking out again, the black car returning, Claire showing up in some unexpected way. I just knew something was coming. It felt like the air itself was holding its breath. And then, just after 11, the same car pulled up. No lights, no sound. It stopped at the same spot across the street, engine running low. Ethan's door creaked open moments later. He moved quickly, hoodie over his head, phone in his hand. I wanted to yell, to stop him, to demand answers, but I stayed frozen. He got into the car and it pulled off again, just like before. Only this time, I grabbed my keys without thinking. I followed. The car weaved through back roads, heading away from town. I kept a distance, far enough not to be seen but close enough not to lose them. My hands were shaking on the wheel. My thoughts were racing, full of fear and 1,000 questions I couldn't shake. Where was he going? Who was he meeting? And most of all, what kind of secret was my stepson caught up in? After nearly 20 minutes, the car pulled into a gated lot near a rundown warehouse on the edge of the industrial district. I parked a block away, heart pounding so loud it felt like it might give me away. From the shadows, I watched Ethan get out and disappear through a side entrance with 2 men. Grown men. Not kids, not friends from school. They looked serious. The kind of serious that meant something was way, way off. I didn't know what to do. Call Tom? Call the police? Or keep watching? I stayed low, barely breathing. A full hour passed. Then 2. The tension in my chest felt like it might snap. And just as I began to think I should leave, a loud noise echoed from inside the building, like something falling or breaking. And then Ethan ran out. Alone. Looking terrified. Ethan ran down the alley, glancing over his shoulder like someone was chasing him. I ducked behind the wheel, heart hammering. He didn't see me. He just kept running, past the car he arrived in, past the fence, disappearing into the shadows behind the warehouse. The driver of the black car stepped out a moment later, speaking into a phone, his face hard and cold. Whatever Ethan had been part of inside that building, he wasn't supposed to leave like that. I waited until the man got back into the car and drove off before I dared to move. I had no idea where Ethan had gone. I should have called someone, anyone, but I couldn't bring myself to do it, not yet. I drove around for over an hour, scanning the streets, trying not to panic. Then finally, near the edge of a park we used to visit years ago, I spotted him, sitting alone on a bench, shaking, like he'd seen something he couldn't unsee. I parked and approached slowly. "Ethan," I whispered. He looked up, startled. Eyes wide, red. He didn't ask how I found him. He didn't seem shocked to see me. He just said, "I messed up." Before I could ask anything else, his phone buzzed. He froze. I caught a glimpse of the screen, Claire's name. He didn't answer. Just stared at it until it went dark again. And that's when he said it. Quiet. Barely audible. "They're using her too." My breath caught. "What do you mean? Who's using her?" He looked away, voice low. "It's not just Claire. That woman from the apartment, she's not who I thought she was. None of them are." Something deeper was going on. Bigger than I'd feared. Whatever Ethan had stepped into wasn't just about infidelity or sneaking around anymore. There was a bigger web here, of lies, manipulation, and people playing roles they weren't supposed to play. And somehow, my stepson was trapped right in the middle of it. I sat beside Ethan on the bench, trying to stay calm while my mind raced. "Tell me everything," I said softly. And he did. In bits and pieces, between shaking breaths, he told me how it started, innocently, at first. He met Claire online, not knowing she lived next door. When they realized, it became a game. Late-night talks, secret glances. But Claire wasn't just lonely, she was working with someone. Luring young guys into a scheme Ethan didn't fully understand until it was too late. That warehouse? It wasn't just a place for secret meetings. It was a drop point. Ethan had been asked to deliver things, packages, USB drives, nothing violent, but always vague. He'd never questioned it, until he walked in that night and saw something he shouldn't have. One of the men, someone Claire had introduced him to, was arguing with the woman from the apartment. It turned violent. He didn't see the end of it. He just ran. I wanted to take him straight to the police, but he begged me not to. He said they'd find him. That Claire knew too much about his life, his family, even where Tom worked. It chilled me to the core. This wasn't just infidelity. It was blackmail. Manipulation. And Ethan had been the perfect pawn. I finally convinced him to come home. We'd figure it out together. But as we approached the house, something felt off. The porch light was on, the front door slightly open. And there, sitting on the couch like she belonged, was Claire, the calm, composed, sipping tea. She looked up at us and smiled. "We need to talk," she said. That's when I realized, Claire wasn't running from anything. She was waiting. I stepped inside first, my pulse thudding in my ears. Ethan stayed close behind me, tense, ready to bolt if he had to. Claire didn't move. She set the teacup down and folded her hands, like she'd been waiting hours just to speak. I never wanted it to go this far, she said, her voice low but steady. But Ethan wasn't the only one in over his head. She explained everything, how the people behind the scheme used her, how they threatened her with things from her past. She admitted she recruited boys like Ethan, told them it was harmless, even exciting. But when things turned darker, she couldn't back out. They watched her. They watched all of us. That final night at the warehouse, Claire said she knew Ethan had seen too much. She tried to warn him, sending the anonymous message. She wasn't sure if he'd run or expose them. But when she realized I was involved too, she took the risk and came to the house, hoping we'd understand before it was too late. With Ethan's help and Claire's statement, we went to the authorities. It wasn't easy, especially for Tom. The truth shattered him, but he stood by Ethan. In the weeks that followed, arrests were made. The network Claire had been trapped in started to fall apart. Slowly, life returned to something close to normal. Ethan changed after that. He kept to himself more but opened up in quiet ways. And I learned something too, that sometimes, the people you think are breaking the rules are really trying to survive them. In the end, this wasn't just a story about infidelity or secrets. It was about fear, mistakes, and finding the courage to tell the truth, even when it's almost too late. 4.